everyone, good evening and welcome to our English News Edition, coming to you from Canal, Algérie. To the headlines. Algeria ranks first at the Arab level in terms of oil and gas exploration, with more discoveries in this vital sector. Positive economic fallouts are expected with a greater cooperation after the holding of the Arab Summit in Algeria. The national and international press is getting ready to cover this upcoming Arab Summit. A case in point, the Kuwaiti television. And a distinguished Sahrawi presence in South Africa denoting the fairness of this cause in Africa. Good evening, those are today's headlines. First in our news, Algeria ranked first at the Arab level in oil and gas exploration, according to the Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries. The report published in its monthly bulletin concerns the first months of the year 2022. No less than 7 new discoveries, 4 oil and 3 gas discoveries were recorded. Algeria came first, followed by the United Arab Emirates with 5 new discoveries, Saudi Arabia with 5 new gas discoveries, Egypt with 2 discoveries, and Syria with 1 gas discovery. Less than 2 weeks left for the Arab Summit scheduled for Algiers. The national and international press is preparing to cover and transmit the event. On this occasion, the Kuwaiti television is programming TV shows and specialized programs with experts and political scientists to enlighten Arab public opinion on current issues. More details with Ania Al-Bahri.
The Kuwaiti television is mobilizing all its means to follow and air the proceedings of the Arab Summit in Algiers, which will be held on November 1st and 2nd. Talk shows and specialized programs will deal with all information of this great event, awaited by all Arab countries. Preparations are underway. All audio-visual equipment are in place for the broadcast of this mega event. Experts and politicians will be invited on this occasion to enlighten public opinion in the Arab countries on current geopolitical and socio-economic issues. Kuwait is fully committed to the success of this Arab Summit hosted by Algeria. The objective is to unify the ranks of the Arab countries on issues of common interest. The Kuwaiti national television journalists mobilized for media coverage are working hard to be ready for the day when the Palestinian cause will be one of the central issues addressed at the Arab Summit in Algiers, an event that aims to be unifying. It will be an opportunity to address the main issues related to the Arab nation and challenges facing Arab peoples, the Palestinian cause, which will be widely debated on TV shows. Aware of the unwavering positions of Algeria in favor of common Arab vision, the Kuwaiti press, whether print or audiovisual, is full of praise for the Algiers Arab Summit.
The world order and its impact on the Arab world was the motto of the symposium held at the National Institute of Global Strategic Studies, during which the stress was put on Algeria's unifying role thanks to its clear vision and unwavering positions. The meeting was upgraded by the presence of a permanent professor, namely Edmond Garib. More details with Sabrin Tafriginid.
On the occasion of Algiers Arab Summit 31st session and in collaboration with the National Radio, in the presence of politicians, general directors and professors, the National Institute of Global Strategic Studies organized a symposium, The International Order and its Impact on the Arab World, with the Lebanese-American professor Edmond Garib and the Professor Ben Abdelaziz Mustafa as invited speakers. Algiers Declaration, role of Algeria in settling conflicts, the expectations from Algiers Arab Summit were the main points addressed during the symposium. Edmond Garib, and in his first visit to Algeria, praised Algeria's unifying role, describing it as the only country that can settle Palestinian conflicts.
To bring together, first of all, the Palestinian groups together, this has been a real challenge that has not been achieved by other players. And I think this is an important and a significant development, because this is still, I think, at least in my humble opinion, this is one of the most important, if not the most important issue that unites Arabs all over the Arab world.
According to the international relations expert, this upcoming summit is an opportunity for Arab leaders to address sensitive matters, cooperate for unified visions in order to achieve an influential position on the international scene.
There is a lot of respect for Algeria and for its role. And that's why I think Algeria has a unique role it can play at this time. And one of the things that they can do also to try to get the Arab countries to give a stronger role to the Arab League and to follow up on the issues, on any agreements, on any mechanisms.
وجود بروفيسور إدموند غريب معنا أكبر دليل على تحقيق.
The presence of Edmond Gharib among us proves the accomplishment of Arab unity, because conflicts start with elite people. But today, finding Arab and foreign elites here present in Algeria proves that we are on the right track for dissolving conflicts and unified powers. This symposium was the opportunity for public debate between the guests before honoring Edmond Gharib by the General Director of the Institute.
Economic aspirations are on the top of the Arab expectations for the upcoming summit. This is the impression of our special envoy to Lebanon, who met with key economic figures and displayed their will for further promoting cooperation and trade exchange. More details in the following story, taken up by Rani Al-Bahri.
The Arab Summit that Algiers will host on November 1st and 2nd will focus on several economic issues, such as the revitalization of the Arab Free Trade Zone and the establishment of mechanisms to promote economic exchanges and inter-Arab investment. In Lebanon, there are great hopes for the economic benefits of this summit and ensuring the conditions for close cooperation between member states of the Arab League. The outcomes of this summit will have positive repercussions on Lebanon. We aim to develop our economic relations with Algeria and promote exchanges and investments between Arab countries, especially as the potentialities and opportunities are important. This free trade agreement between the two countries is not really active. For example, in 2020, we had $8 million of exports to Algeria. We had imported $80 million, which is very little compared to the economy. I personally find it very tiny, especially that Lebanon can bring a lot of imports from Algeria. The Arab Summit highlights promising prospects of economic partnership between Algeria and Lebanon, but also between the member states of the Arab League. We went to meet the president of the Forum of the Lebanese Palestinian Businessmen. This latter will be in Algiers at the head of an important delegation. Algeria, which chairs this Arab Summit, has a major role in the region to develop bilateral and inter-Arab economic cooperation, but also to revitalize the Free Zone Arab exchange. We expect a lot from this summit to put in place appropriate mechanisms to strengthen inter-Arab economic exchanges and exploit collective wealth. It is also a matter of ensuring the conditions to increase freedom of exchange for economic integration. The Arab Summit is a favorable event for discussing the opportunities to establish a system of cooperation and economy in the region and reactivate the Arab Free Trade Zone, which has a positive impact on Lebanon. Algeria, which today represents an undeniable economic force, is asserting itself day by day in pole position at the regional level. The confidence of the Arab countries, which rely on its leading role to set up a common economic cooperation.
The great Mufti of Al-Quds in Palestine, Sheikh Mohammed Hassan, transmitted the gratitude of the Palestinian people for Algeria that hosted the reconciliation of Palestinian factions. The great Mufti also thanked the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, the initiator of the Algiers Declaration for Palestinian reconciliation. The Sheikh also displayed his optimism and hopefulness that the outcomes of the Arab Summit will be positive for the Palestinian people. This statement was made on Tuesday during his meeting with the chairman of the High Islamic Council, Abu Abdullah Ghulamullah, on the sidelines of the proceedings of the 7th International Conference of Fatwa Bodies in Cairo. The Algiers Declaration, signed by the Palestinian factions, was also welcomed by Mu'tasim Hamada, member of the Political Bureau of the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine. He called on all Palestinian factions to consider the Algiers Declaration as a new opportunity to defend the Palestinian cause, to break the deadlock of the divisions and strengthen national unity. Algeria and Turkey signed an agreement in the field of higher education and scientific research, a twinning agreement between Algerian University and those of Istanbul, signed by the Minister of the Sector, Kemal Bidari, and the President of the Turkish Council of Higher Education, Erol Ozvar, with a goal to strengthen relations and cooperation between the two sectors. Let's have a listen to the statements made by both sides.
The objective is to reinforce the mobility in both sides between university institutions of Algiers and Istanbul, reinforce innovation and scientific research so that these universities will help promote the national economy and give a new impetus to education and scientific research sectors.
Yüksek öğretim alanında yapacağımız
We aim to reinforce these cooperation agreements to the benefit of students and professors of both countries. We had a discussion with the Minister of Education and Scientific Research to promote ways to upgrade cooperation, including granting scholarships for students.
At the Foreign Affairs Ministry, the Secretary General of the Foreign Ministry, Ammar Bilani, and the Ambassador of Cuba to Algeria, Vergara Bueno, supervised the celebration ceremony of the 60th anniversary of establishing diplomatic relations between Algeria and Cuba. The ceremony took place in the presence of the advisor to the President of the Republic, in charge of National Archive and National Memory, Abdelmajid Sheikhi, and representatives of Algiers Post and members of the accredited diplomatic corps in Algeria. Within the framework of the fight against terrorism and during a search operation, detachments of the National People's Army have neutralized 2 terrorists on Tuesday in Shabat Tururin in the zone of the municipality of Beni Malik, town of Damus in the province of Tipaza, belonging to the 1st Military Region. During this operation, the National People's Army detachment also managed to recover the Kalashnikov submachine guns, 6 ammunition magazines, an improvised mine, bomb-making tools, 2 pairs of binoculars for mobile phones, 2 backpacks, and other objects. This operation, still ongoing, denotes the determination and vigilance of the National People's Army to track criminals across the national territory and cut the way in the face of all forms of support for the residues of these criminal groups. The President of the Sahrawi Republic, Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Brahim Ghali, was received on Tuesday by the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa. This state visit is a strong proof that South Africa will continue to engage for the right of the Sahrawi people for self-determination. South Africa has recognized the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic since 2004, while the links between the African National Congress and the Polisario Front dates back to the time of the struggle against the apartheid. Within the framework of the state visit, Brahim Ghali held talks with his South African counterpart. The talks were extended later to include the delegations of both countries. The 2 presidents discussed the latest developments of the Sahrawi cause, as well as many issues of common interest. Moroccans keep taking to the street to denounce misery and the harsh living conditions which they are facing. Today's demonstration coincides with the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty. Manal Ammari tells us more.
During protests organized in Marrakesh by the Moroccan Social Front, Moroccans took to the streets chanting slogans to denounce their miserable life conditions, the decrease in agricultural production, the exorbitant price increase, the deteriorating purchasing power, and the government's oppressive policies. A government that turns a deaf ear to its people during the worst social and economic crisis that the country has ever gone through. These protests are held to denounce poverty, the price hike, and the low purchasing power, while hydrocarbon companies make high profits. This is an opportunity for us to condemn the government for not taking real social actions to face poverty and the price rise, even though it announced some useless programs and measures. Yet it will not face the current social and economic crisis, corruption, bribery, as well as violations of rights and freedoms that citizens are suffering from on a daily basis. And we are calling on them to find real solutions to these issues. These price hikes continue to prevent ordinary citizens from getting basic and essential goods for their families. As a result, they are demanding the right to live with dignity. We are here to express our opinion against the rising prices and oppression, due to which average citizens aren't able to provide for their families. We demand the review of the employment code to guarantee workers' rights, workers that now have to struggle to buy basic consumer products and even transportation tickets. We are here to make our voices heard for the advancement of the agricultural social group that suffers from destitution, and to denounce the advertisements containing data which contradicts with the true social dimension of the country. The Moroccan Social Front plans to stage more protests in other cities throughout the kingdom to fight against tyranny, corruption, the increase in fuel prices, as well as the worst drought that the country has experienced in decades.
Sahrawi journalists continue to exercise their noble profession, undeterred by the blockage imposed by the Makhzen regime, the prosecution, imprisonment, and even torture. من العماري again.
Bashir Tkhili, Mamoun Hashmi, and Mbarak Mamin are some of the Sahrawi journalists in the occupied territories who were arrested, tortured, and imprisoned for denouncing the Moroccan occupiers' violations. I was arrested in 2017 in the occupied territories. I was tortured and I endured all kinds of violations at the detention center, then at the prison. They deprived me of all of my rights. We have many imprisoned colleagues such as Bashir Khadda, Abdallah Al-Khfaouni, Hassan Adda, and Mohamed Lamin Haddi, sentenced to life imprisonment. This did not prevent Sahrawis from continuing their struggle and setting up resistance media. We have documentaries and film that are screened in cinemas abroad. Despite the media blackout imposed by the Makhzen in the occupied territories, Sahrawi journalists continue to play their role fully by collecting testimonies to make the voices of the Sahrawi people heard by the rest of the world. Several non-governmental organizations deem Western Sahara as a black point. One of the crimes that the Sahrawi people suffer from is the lack of freedom of expression and opinion. Freedom of press is a right that must be respected by all. All of Morocco's violations against Sahrawis is a crime. It is time to oblige Morocco to allow international press to go to the occupied territories of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. Sahrawi journalists continue to carry out their noble duties, despite of all the shackles imposed by the Makhzen regime in Western Sahara.
Ireland reiterates its full support for the right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination through its representation at the United Nations. Ireland fully backs the vital work of the United Nations mission for the organization of a referendum in Western Sahara, MINURSO, and also efforts of the Special Envoy of the UN Secretary General, Staffan de Mistura. To Palestine, where the Palestinian Foreign Ministry welcomed the decision of the Australian government to renounce the recognition of West al-Quds as the capital of the Zionist entity, going back from a decision taken by the preceding Conservative government, as announced by the Australian Foreign Ministry. For Penny Wong, the question of the status of Al-Quds should be settled within the framework of peace negotiations between Palestinians and the Zionist entity, not via unilateral decisions. USM Algiers will take on the South African side of Cape Town City FC in the second preliminary round of the CAF Cup competition following the draw held on Tuesday. The first leg will take place in South Africa on November 2nd, while the second leg will be held a week later in City of Stadium. Good luck for Algeria's representative. And with that, our news edition comes to a close. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.